Well, in this game, oh boy, this video is off to a good start, isn't it? In this video, I will explain how to play a 4-player game of a new game, Democracy. The game plays over 4 rounds. Each round has 2 parts. A drafting phase, where you pick a few cards. A legislation phase, where you try to gain power by sponsoring and voting on legislation. And then the player with the most power at the end of the game is the winner. To start, everyone gets 6 democracy cards. You can see them here in the top row. We also get 5 legislation cards. You can see them here on the bottom row. And a pair of voting tokens. It's these little guys right here. In the center of the table, we'll set up all the other tokens, the centerpiece, and the extra democracy cards. We're going to play through 1 round in this video to demonstrate how the game is played. First, let's take a look at our democracy cards. Politician cards, like Bezos here, allow you to sponsor legislation and earn power. Politicians have 3 stats. Zoom in a little bit so you can see. First, there's hearts. The number of hearts shows a politician's will to serve the public. If the politician loses all of their hearts, they will retire, and the card is discarded. Second, there's the ranking. Politicians like Bezos have a ranking. Bezos is 15th. This is important during the voting in the legislation round. You'll see why. And last, politicians can carry a number of different supporter cards, like these here. Bezos, for example, can carry 2 supporter cards. Politicians are useless on their own. They must be paired with supporters, which give the politician votes. Each supporter has 1, 2, or 3 votes. And you can see here in this array of cards, I've only got 1s and 2s. This is 1 vote, this is 2 votes, this is 2 votes, this is 2 votes, and this is 2 votes. It's actually a pretty good hand. Supporters all have an agenda that they care about, and they will want you to pass or block different pieces of legislation according to those agendas. So this is civil rights. Here we've got legalized weed. Over here we've got education. This is the environment, for example. As you build your coalition, keep in mind what legislation you're going to want to propose and how it ties into the agendas of your supporters. Okay, before we start, let me talk a little bit about the legislation phase. When the legislation phase begins, we'll look around the table to see who has the best ranking politician. Lowest number goes first. So Bezos, with 15, is middle of the pack. There's 32 politicians in this game. Everyone will have a chance to sponsor a bill. These are the bills. You can see our bills here at the bottom, and when we're choosing a bill to sponsor, or when we're voting, we're going to have to consider 2 things. First, do we think this bill will pass? We'll see that by looking at the rest of the table and who's interested in what agendas. Second, we want to know how our supporters will want us to vote. And as you can see, for example, the environment groups want us to vote for this bill, and the civil rights groups want us to oppose this bill. Voting with the crowd to pass a bill will earn us 1 power. Sponsoring a bill that passes will also earn us 1 power. The most explosive way to earn power, though, is to get the legislative results that make your supporters happy. And as we go along, we'll be looking at what cards the other players are playing. We're trying to find allies for the things we want to achieve. Let's jump in. All right, so I've simulated a tabletop here. And as you can see, in the middle, we've got our centerpiece, and we've got 3 tokens. Didn't bother putting a crowd, but there will be a little piles there of tokens. And we have 4 players. In the top left, top right, bottom left, and here's us. Each of these players would have these legislation cards stacked up neatly. This is the back of the legislation card right there. They each have a hand of democracy cards. You can kind of see them there as I've indicated. And here's our hand. So looking at this hand, like I said, we have some really good supporters here. This is actually a pretty good hand. But we're going to need a politician to carry our supporters before we go forward. So right off the bat, I'm going to select Jeff Bezos so that I have a politician to start building my coalition around. All right, so now I've passed to the left. I've received cards from this player up here. We're, by the way, passing the same way that these arrows are pointing. So I've received his leftover cards. You'll see I've got 5. So he picked one. He picked up Joe Lieberman. This guy picked up small businesses, which are an economic agenda supporter. And over here, this player picked up Nancy Pelosi. And Nancy Pelosi received my batch of cards that were left over from selecting Bezos. All right, so here's our new batch of 5 cards. I see I've got baby boomers, which have 2 votes, and they're an economic interest group. And I have 2 economic bills. So that looks pretty good to me. I'll pick that one. Here we are in another round. I've got Ross Perot. He's not a great politician. I've got a couple of interest groups with 1 vote each. Those aren't very interesting to me. Then I have Oprah Winfrey, who's actually about the same caliber as Jeff Bezos. I like her, so I'm going to pick her up. Over here, we can see that this player picked up a 2-vote education support group. This player picked up Dick Cheney. And these guys picked up a 2-vote civil rights agenda supporter group. All right, so now I've received 3 cards. And out of these 3, I really like this one. Notice that I've got 2 bills down here, actually, that are opposed by civil rights, which might become a problem for me later in the game. I'm not going to worry about that right now because I like having these 2 votes. That's going to be a good deal for me. Over here, we can see that Nancy Pelosi picked up minivan manufacturers, which are a pro-life interest group. And up top here, with Dick Cheney, we've got adjunct professors, which advocate legalizing weed. And bank robbers have joined Joe Lieberman as a guns rights support group. I put my immigrants, which are the 2-vote civil rights support group, put them together with Oprah Winfrey. And here's the last 2 cards that I have to look at. And between the 2 of them, I really like people who live in cities because there's 2 votes there. I have both a education-focused bill, and I also have a environment-focused bill. So these are both pretty good for me, and I can see that with 2 votes, that's going to be a little better for me. So now everyone at the table has picked up their raft of politicians. This is the table as it is. And so we're going to take a second and just count the votes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes across my supporters. So when I vote yes or no, that's going to count for 6 votes. On the other hand, both this player and that player have 5 votes each, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over there. And up here, we have Dick Cheney with only 3 votes. Notice that this player ran into a problem. Dick Cheney can only carry 2 supporters, and he's full. Apparently, this player couldn't pick up another politician, and so they've got these interest groups, which they've just got to put aside. They can use them starting at the next round. But for this legislative session, those supporter groups are not represented. So that's a long-term opportunity for that player, but at the moment, they're useless to him. Looking around the politicians, we can see that Nancy Pelosi is ranked 12th, so she'll go first because that's the lowest number we've got on the board. I'm going to be next with 15th with Jeff Bezos, and then Joe Lieberman with 16th rank is going to go number 3. It's going to go third. And then Dick Cheney at 31st will go last. All right, so this player sponsors triggering a volcano for scientific purposes. This is something that's supported by the education groups. It's opposed by the environmentalist groups. It's irrelevant to these 2 players, but I don't like it. I oppose it because I've got people who live in cities who are environmentally friendly. So I vote against it. These 2 players both vote for it because they know that if this passes, they can get a point, a power. They vote for it. This player in the bottom left votes for it because, as the sponsor, they stand to gain 2 points if this passes. So they're very interested. And with the education interest here, they stand to make little extra points at the end of the round as well. This passes. I've got 6 votes that say against it, but they've got 13 that approve this bill. So the bill passes 13-6. We'll slide that bill here under the centerpiece to record how it played out. Everybody that voted yes gets a point, and Nancy Pelosi here, because this player sponsored it, they get a second point, one for sponsoring and one for voting yes. On the other hand, I, because I voted against this bill, get a heartbreak token. This heartbreak token I can assign wherever I want to put it. All right. So I have assigned this heartbreak token to Jeff Bezos. You can see everybody else kind of put things away. And now it's our turn to propose a bill. I've got two that I'm considering. On the one hand, I'm looking at ending the child tax credit, which is economically friendly, and I see I have an economic ally over here. On the other hand, this is opposed by the pro-life interest groups, and I can see that this player is very strongly pro-life. So they will definitely vote against actually either one of these bills. Dick Cheney only has 3 votes. I have 6. So if both of us are voting yes, that's going to get us 9 votes. Nancy Pelosi and Ross Perot together have 5 votes. So on its face, it's 9-5. This player is a wild card. He could vote yes, could vote no. I'm not sure how he's going to vote. And so this is a bit of an open question for me. Whereas, on the other hand, if I choose this bill, implement the purge, this guy is now going to be my ally because he has a guns supporter, and guns are supported by this. This isn't as attractive to me because I don't have a guns icon. I don't have a guns supporter. And so I'm missing an opportunity to get points. But I'm guaranteed pretty much that this will pass because he's going to vote for it and I'll vote for it. That's 11 points. And no matter how these guys vote, it will pass. So that's what I propose. And sure enough, everybody votes yes, except Nancy Pelosi, who has to oppose it, or else she would lose all of her pro-life supporters. So now we're going to score. I get 2 points, one for sponsoring it and one for voting yes. The top 2 players both get a point each for voting yes. And because she voted against it, Nancy Pelosi, Ross Perot, this player gets a heartbreak token, which they can assign anywhere they want. If they assign this to Ross Perot will retire. He can only take 1 heart loss. So they're probably going to assign it to Nancy Pelosi. And sure enough, that's what they do. Third up is Joe Lieberman and Ron Paul. So this player now gets to propose a bill, and they're going to propose that we declare weed tax-free. Now, this bill is a really rough one for Dick Cheney because he has supporters that are both legalized weed supporters and economic supporters. If he votes yes, his weed supporters will be happy, but his economic supporters will feel betrayed and they will leave. On the other hand, if he votes no, the economic guys are going to be happy, but his weed supporters will leave. Either way, one of these 2 groups will feel betrayed, and Dick Cheney will lose a heart. Because he only has 1 heart to start off with, that means at the end of this vote, Dick Cheney is going to take a loss, and he's going to retire. So this player is in a very difficult position. I'm also in kind of a rough spot, because I want this to fail, but I assume that Joe Lieberman and Ron Paul up here are going to vote for it because they proposed it. I'm not sure how this guy will vote. I think that myself and the other bottom player here, I think we can vote against it together. We both have a heart loss. So let's say that I make the argument to that person, hey, let's vote the same way against this so that we don't have any more heart losses. Let's say that the bottom left player buys my argument. She decides to vote with me. Dick Cheney, turns out, decided to oppose it as well. So everybody votes against it except the sponsor. And so it fails because we have 3 plus 5, that's 8, plus 6, that's 14 votes against it, and only 5 votes for it. So this bill fails. Because this player voted for it, he gets a heartbreak token. Because Dick Cheney betrayed the adjunct professors, they are going to leave and they are going to break his only heart. So he's going to get a heartbreak token that's going to cause him to retire. Because we were voting against the bill instead of passing it, nobody gains any power. This is just losses. All right, so here you can see I'm sort of trying to underscore the point that adjunct professors feel betrayed. They are leaving. Dick Cheney takes this heart loss. It's the only one he has, so he also retires. Both cards are going to be discarded. Nevertheless, even though this top left character has no more politicians, they still have the ability to propose a bill. They can't vote because they don't have any politicians, but they can still propose one. So here they put out one that they think will win. It's a flat tax for all residents. It's supported by the economy, which is going to get my vote, probably, but it's opposed by the civil rights, which is definitely going to get voted against by these guys. So there's 5 votes definitely against it. I'm split by this because I have a civil rights supporter here, and I also have an economic interest supporter here. But at the end of this round, if I still have my economic interests, I'm going to get a point for this card because there's an economic interest that was basically the economic interests wanted this bill to be blocked, and I blocked it successfully. And so if I can add on to that by getting this one passed, that's good for me. So I'm incentivized to vote for this. And the bottom left character is incentivized to vote for it as well, because if it passes, she gets a point. So that's how it goes. She votes yes just for the positive point of voting yes on a bill that passes. I vote yes to defend my economic interests, although I am betraying my civil rights. And this character votes against it because he doesn't want to lose literally all of his supporters except for the bank robbers. So here's the fallout. I lose this card, and Oprah Winfrey will get this heartbreak token. I don't get to pick where this one goes because Oprah Winfrey was the one who betrayed the immigrants. And so she will receive this heartbreak token. This player gets a heartbreak token because he voted against something that passed. He can choose where this goes. Other than that, top left player sponsored a bill that passed, so he gets a point. He didn't vote for it, so he doesn't get a vote for voting yes. But both Nancy Pelosi and I did vote yes, and so both of us get a point for that. Now that everybody has sponsored a bill, the voting is done, and now we just have to score the entire the slate of legislation that we passed or blocked this round. As you can see, there are 2 bills that went the way of the economic interests. And so my card of economic interests, the baby boomers, is worth 2 points, 1 for each bill that went their direction. The education interests had 1 bill that went their direction. So the textbook publishers also earned Nancy Pelosi a power point. And the bank robbers are happy that we implemented the purge because you can see there's a guns icon here. It went the direction of the guns agenda, and this supporter here now gets 1 point for that. Up here, you can see that the top left character loses out on any chance to benefit at this point of the point selection, even though down here in his cards that he's not using right now, he does have the Doomsday Preppers and the small businesses, both of which would have gotten him a point or 2. Small businesses would have been worth 2 points. Doomsday Preppers would have been worth 1 point. And so he's missing out on an opportunity, and that's because he did not have enough politicians to stay alive through the end of the round. So, summing up, he earned 3 points, 3 power, over the course of this round. This player also earned 3 power over the course of this round. Nancy Pelosi and Ross Perot down here earned 4 points, 4 power over the course of this round, and I earned 5. At this point, if we were playing the full game, we would flip over the centerpiece, which would say rounds 2 and 4. These arrows would then go the other direction, so we'd be passing to our right instead of to our left. We would deal out 6 more democracy cards for every person. That's these politicians and the supporters. And we would begin the drafting process all over again, pick up new politicians, new supporters, and some wild cards. These 3 supporters for this guy now come into play. As soon as he has a politician, he can put these supporters with his politician, and he's back in business. That's a brief how-to. Granted, I didn't cover everything, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy democracy. And I hope I can figure out how to stop this video.